Hi, everyone. It's Homeopathy United and Rebecca O'Brien, that would be me, and Dr. Alex
Of me.
DeMello, that would be you.
Yeah.
And we made it. Um, Technical difficulties. They're so much fun. But we're excited to be here on the skin group, as we abbreviate it when we're talking about you guys. And I'd love to turn it over to Alex so she can tell us a little bit about why she created this group.
Well, this group was created basically to bring awareness in chronic conditions, chronic skin conditions, and homeopathy. There are so many chronic skin conditions which conventional medicine has no no
Solutions?
solutions. I mean, what it offers is more a palliation of the symptoms rather than a permanent resolution of the condition. And so people will have to be on cortisone or anti-inflammatories for basically all their lives, or antihistamines. And homeopathy is really, really a wonderful natural system of medicine that with time can actually offer a resolution. The skin as well was thought about because homeopathy is a complete system of medicine, and so it has the potential of addressing many chronic conditions. But let's say if we would pick up migraines, which people suffer from migraines sometimes for decades. It would always be the testimonial of a person, but there would not be evidence. While with skin, you can have the pictures of the skin before treatment and after treatment, and actually see the impact of homeopathy. And it's said many times that a good image is worth 1,000 words.
It's true.
So
It's very true.
that's the reason.
And as homeopaths, we've both seen the evidence of the elimination of something that has come to the skin. And I'm looking forward to talking today about acute cases where you might break out from hives from something that you've encountered, or a bee sting or what have you, versus a chronic condition, which has been going on for many years. And then we're going to focus our attention remedy-wise on Impetigo. And Dr. Alex has a wonderful case to share. So I'm going to share my screen, maybe, and we have some slides to show everybody. Hey, look at
Sure.
that. It actually worked. Yay.
Yay.
So basically just what I said, homeopathy, chronic versus acute, skin conditions and remedies for impetigo, or impetigo, as you say it in Portugal.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about this. I mean, this is the question that we see almost every case, or every person that posts on the page. This is kind of the first thing that they say. Have you ever seen a rash like this? Please help me figure out what it is. It's totally understandable when you break out in something, you want an explanation. You want to understand what's going on with the body. Why is it showing up this way, and what does it mean? And we want to talk a little bit about that today. Dr. Alex, will you talk about why things show up on the skin the way that they do? What does that mean for us in homeopathy? We're always happy when it shows up on the skin. People aren't usually happy, but we're usually happy.
Yeah. Well, basically the body has a wisdom and will try to put or bring symptoms in the most safer organ or layer of the body. And the skin is the biggest organ that we have, and it's our outermost layer. So when things appear on the skin, usually it's a safer, it is a safe place. It can be very disturbing, it can be very painful, but it's much better to be on the skin than to be suppressed with steroids or cortisone or corticosteroids and start being driven. Actually, the skin will improve, but we have seen over the years a big correlation between chronic skin conditions and rheumatoid arthritis. So after many years of conventional medicine, the skin will start to improve eventually, but then the joints will start being affected. So basically the inflammation left the skin and was driven inwards inside the body.
And one of my favorite, the thing that stuck with me from even back in school was talking about back in the day when they would treat rashes that would show up on the body with mercury. And the mercury would make the rash go away, but whatever was going on, whatever the body was trying to eliminate, would show up in the lungs. And within a week or two, people would end up with some form of bronchitis or pneumonia or what have you. So oftentimes when I have a case of someone, an adult, who will have asthmatic issues, I will often ask them, did you have skin issues when you were a kid? And did they put, cortisone and, creams and steroids and such? And people are always quite surprised. They're like, how do you know that? That's got nothing to do with my lungs. But the reality is it does. When it's on the skin, when the body is trying to eliminate it through the skin, and we suppress it or push it in, it has to go somewhere. And typically it shows up in an organ.
Yeah.
So that's when something might go from acute, when it's on the skin, to a chronic situation. And this outline that we have, an acute condition, is when the eruption is present for less than two weeks, sometimes 3, just depends on, what it is. And if you post on the page and say, what's going on, please help me figure this out, or I was told it was blah, 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 what do I take for this? And by the way, I've had it for 6 months. We will quickly refer to the fact that this is a chronic situation. But if it's something that is still on the skin and it's relatively new, we'll start to ask a bunch of questions. So Alex, will you talk a little bit about some of the questions that we ask and why we go into these questions with regards to acute versus chronic?
So if it is an acute situation, and as you said, it has been present on the skin for 2 weeks, maximum 3 weeks, there will be many questions that we can ask, because the thing is that even if you come to a diagnosis, and I just want to make clear that we are not allowed by law to diagnose anything that is posted on Facebook, which makes sense because, we are not in front of the patient and we are not dermatologists. But the beauty of homeopathy is that it does not really matter what is the name of the diagnosis that you are faced with, because the same remedy can cure eczema on one person, address impetigo on another, and psoriasis on another.
Or a bee sting, for that matter. Somebody might break out in hives from a bee sting, and same situation.
Exactly.
It's how they respond and react to whatever it is that has stimulated the body to create these symptoms.
Absolutely. So in chronic conditions, so over 3 weeks, we will not be suggesting remedies because if you start taking remedies, it can actually make the chronic case uh, even more complex. And then
Mhm.
it will make it really, really difficult to find out the correct remedy for that person. Because even if you do not see a change on the skin and you are not aware of other changes that go on your body, with each remedy that you are taking over a period of time, the symptoms will change slightly. And then it will make the case very, very complex. Um,
And this
in
is where we go
chronic,
into the next slide about totality.
yeah. So in the chronic cases, we always need a, a full case taking because we need the totality of the person and not of the situation that we are seeing in front of us. In an acute situation is different.
Mhm.
So there we can, because an acute situation might be that you touched poison ivy, might be that you get a rash because you were while sleeping or you were camping and the centipede, spider bites, poison plants, you
Mhm.
know,
You could
even
pet the wrong
detergent.
animal. Some people
Oh,
don't know that they're allergic to certain animals until they touch
exactly,
them, or they sleep in a bed that has some pet dander in it and they are allergic, but they didn't know it was there. There's so many different things that
yeah.
bring
Fleas,
inflammation to the surface.
fleas, bed bugs,
Yeah,
and
and so
any
much more.
many different circumstances. So then it's of course then we can ask some questions,
Mhm.
and according to the totality of the circumstances, which will be a much shorter case, because we don't need to go completely into the constitution of the person, so not the full totality
Mhm.
of the symptoms of the person. And the most common question is, when did this start? What have you done? You know,
What have you
few
eaten? What have you been
days,
exposed
a
to?
few
Did you,
days
yeah,
just before this condition appeared.
appeared? Sure.
Um, what do you feel? Where is it located? Because usually it's not systemic, it doesn't go throughout the body. Um,
Does it
it's more
itch? Does it feel better
localized.
if you itch it?
Exactly. So then
Yeah.
we will ask quite a lot of questions in an acute situation. The sensation, is it burning? Is it stinging? Is it hot? Does it feel cold? If it has a kind of, if it is itching, does the itch gets better when you put cold applications, or does the itch gets much better when you go under the hot shower?
Water. Yeah.
Um,
So lots of
so
different questions that will lead us to finding the remedy.
yeah.
And today we wanted to go down the road or the path of Impetigo as an acute case that, it shows up, it's short-lived, but there's a lot of suffering. And if you can find a remedy, um, it's a wonderful thing to kind of shift it. Choosing the remedy, something that people have to keep in mind is when they do reach out to us and say, hey, I've got this thing, what do I take? There are upwards of 8,000 remedies to pick from and over 200,000 rubrics or specific symptoms that we take into consideration when we're looking at an acute or a chronic case. So it's not our toolbox is huge, basically, is what it boils down to. We have a lot to choose from, and that's why we ask the very specific questions so that we can narrow that scope and find what works best for somebody. So the remedies chosen today for impetigo or impetigo, uh, Dr. Alex had a case um, recently, and it was for two children. Tell us a little bit about what this was like.
So this actually, this case, what is a good case because it's two little boys, which they are brothers. Was about 5 years old, and the other was 5 months at the time, and they both appeared with impetigo right at the same time. The mom took them to the pediatrician. The pediatrician confirmed the diagnosis and prescribed antibiotics. Of course, with impetigo, usually it's the microorganism that causes the skin eruptions is strep staphylococcus, and it's quite contagious. And because most of the times it's itchy as well, it's very easy to spread. So the kids will scratch, and as they touch other areas of the body, they can spread the infection, and it can get infected quite quickly. So that's one reason why antibiotics are prescribed most of the time. So this is a case that two boys in the same family, exactly with the same condition, and they got different remedies. So the little Zephyrus, the older boy, he is a patient of mine. So I know him well. I know the remedies that I knew his constitutional remedy as well. And of course, because he's older and he speaks, he was able to explain the symptoms. And he got sulfur because the rash, and first of all, the vesicles were very purulent. They had pus, and they were actually quite painful. And you wouldn't. He was. It was a little bit itchy, but you wouldn't touch it because it was so painful to try to scratch them. And he was very uncomfortable, and he was very, very irritable as well. So all that pointed for sulfur. The little one, the baby, the vesicles were different, and they had a water
They almost look
fluid
like hives, but they're filled with
inside.
fluid.
Yeah, they had a watery fluid inside. And because he was very, very young, due to the aspect of the vesicles and where they were located, and the mom again is my patient, and of course the baby he wasn't talking, and he couldn't explain the sensations or what made it better or what made it worse, etc. He got the constitutional remedy of the mom that fitted at least very well the aspect of the eruptions of his impetigo, and that was natrum muriaticum. And so both cases resolved quite quickly.
And mom was much happier too.
Yeah,
To
absolutely.
have two children that are absolutely miserable at the same time is such a challenge. It's bad enough with one, but as you were describing the oldest, that it was so painful for him to even touch them that he would stay away from scratching them. I can't even imagine the suffering that was going on at the time. So it was wonderful to see the before and after of this and see how well things cleared up for them. And I think that it was pretty quickly too that you saw. You said she said in 2 days the baby's eruptions were not active anymore. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, they didn't spread.
So speaking of remedies, let's talk about Missourium and how that really works well on certain cases of impetigo.
So this is a very good remedy for this condition. I mean, don't get me wrong, but we have more than 80 remedies. Of course, there will be some remedies that will come up with more frequency than others. And this is one remedy that have had quite good resolution of this condition. And usually for this remedy, what stands out is that the crusts that form when the vesicles are scratched or they start drying up they are very thick crusts. This is one of the main thing that it will stand out. They are yellow, but a darker yellow. It's almost like honey colored. And they can have, again, like hepatosulfur, thick pus inside. And what it will distinguish from hepatosulfur is that they are very itchy. So the children will want to scratch most of the time. And one thing that it is very important to do is that you cut the nails of the children very, very short and make sure, of course, if they are older, it's easier to say, if you scratch or if you catch yourself scratching, please go and wash your hands. If it is a small child, just make sure that you wash their hands very regularly and, even disinfect them with a bit of alcohol afterwards, because underneath the nails, it's a disaster. And the longer the nails, the worse it will be.
Sure. It's like it's a carrier and they can spread it all over the place.
Yeah, as well with Miserium, as well as the itching, there might be a burning sensation. And like episulfur, they will be quite irritable and cranky.
Good to know. And then the next remedy that we wanted to talk about today is cicuta.
Yeah, again, it can be, cicuta is a wonderful skin remedy, as well as an epileptic remedy. And it comes up very often for eczema as well, not only impetigo. And its common name is cow pain, because it's actually poison. Some cows will get away from it because it's poison, but some other cows actually will munch on it and they will not have a problem because the poison is mostly concentrated in the root. And that's what we use to do the homeopathic remedy. So it can have some similarities with Miserium that we just talked about, because again, it has crust formations. The scabs, again, will be like honey colored, but they will not be, and they can itch and burn as well, but they will not be as thicker crusts as it is in Miserium. And the liquid that comes out of the vesicles is actually quite corrosive. So you tend to see a redness around the vesicles. And when the scab leaves, there will be like a red shiny surface underneath. So the skin will take quite a bit, a little bit of more time to become its normal color.
Okay.
And the other thing that you do not see so much with Meserium is that the vesicles, the rubber's, that tend to run together. So they converge, and then instead of many, you have bigger areas with um, a larger, all the vesicles, they become confluent and they merge. So that's another characteristic of.
And the scalp is most affected with the impetigo. In this particular case, you're going to see the impetigo on their head.
Yeah, true. And not only for impetigo. If it is eczema, it can be throughout the body, but usually the scalp is quite affected. And I had many years ago a case of cradle cap that, oh my God, it was, it had gone beyond cradle cap, and it was the whole scalp. And actually, after cicuta, it was like almost these caps. The whole crust came out as a cup,
Oh,
and the child became fine. But the
wow.
scalp was so affected, and because they converge, it almost made like a beanie, that came out.
Oh, they must have
And
been
it
so
started.
happy when that remedy kicked in and started working. And
Yeah.
just speaking of that, that's the beautiful thing is sometimes it can take just a couple of doses of the right remedy, and you see a shift that can be that significant, and it doesn't come back, which is really beautiful. Um, I can't even imagine the relief that child must have experienced. So the next remedy that we wanted to cover was natrum muriaticum, and anybody that uses homeopathy is probably very familiar with this remedy. It has so many wonderful attributes and uses, and it's table salt, which is really quite fascinating when you think about how simple it is, and that we consume it every day. In our diets, but to have it in a homeopathic remedy, where it is more like the essence of, or a nanoparticle of the salt, the capacity to heal is really remarkable. Talk a little bit about Nat Mira. This was the remedy that you used for the baby in that testimonial. Is that right?
Yeah. So the keynote, it will be this watery fluid that you will see on the vesicles, inside of the vesicles, and they tend to appear more on the face or on the neck, as you saw. And one characteristic place is underneath the nose, underneath the septum of the nose, and sometimes the upper lip, it even gets slightly swollen. It's characteristic place, but it does not need to be. I mean, you cannot eliminate natrum muriaticum if you do not see the eruptions in that location, but it's a common place where they appear, and it can have a little bit of burning and stinging as well, but usually there isn't much itching, and in the with this type might be a little bit of itching, but it's not crazy itching.
But you can see
Like,
the vesicles formed and how watery they are. And, they may not be as irritable, like you said, as Hep sulf.
mm.
But clearly with a condition like impetigo, they're going to have some level of discomfort.
And we are just talking about the skin, but of course, when even in acute situations for a skin, we will have in consideration other symptoms as well. Usually if a patient is in a natrum muriaticum state, you will see that they are more thirsty than usual. They will be going, reaching for a drink much more often than their normal selves.
Mm-hmm.
And the mom, in the case of this baby, said, oh, he's breastfeeding more than usual. And she thought it was more because she breastfeeds on demand and the baby was very small. It was more for comfort. But actually, that came as an extra confirmation that it was not probably just comfort, but it's because the baby is more thirsty than usual. And that was, again, a push towards natrum muriaticum.
Fantastic. And then the one that we've referenced the most is Hep sulf. And again, this is one of those remedies that just has so many attributes, so many contributions to homeopathy, so many places where it shows up in our lives. And it's such a phenomenal remedy.
It is. So this remedy is made from the inner layer of the oyster shell. So basically, it's a combination of mineral salts, and it's called impure calcium sulfide. And the characteristic of Impetigo that needs sulfur is that the vesicles are filled with pus. So it's the opposite of natrum muriaticum. Natrum muriaticum would be watery fluid, and the fluid will be like water and looking like water. While with sulfur, it will be pus and yellow. It can even have almost a foul smell to it. You can almost feel an odor. And the other thing that tends to point to episulfur, and again, it doesn't matter if it is eruptions on the skin or if it is a throat infection like tonsillitis, it's that any kind of condition that is an episulfur condition, the patient is very, very sensitive to pain. So the eruptions will be very painful. And so even if they were itchy, people will tend not to scratch them so much because the slightest touch will aggravate so much the pain. And finally, another characteristic that we tend to see is that the sores or the vesicles or the eruptions tend to get infected very, very easily. So here you really need to pay attention to the nails. You really need, because the pus spreads very easily and it gets infected very, very easily.
Well, and one of the things that when we started talking about this, when you mentioned that they're pus filled as opposed to water, Hep sulf is one of those boil and abscess remedies. One of the first remedies you think about for boils and abscesses. And another video that we had done on lumps and bumps, which was actually about boils and abscesses and that type of thing, Hep sulf was featured in that video as well. And if anybody's interested in seeing more, it's on our YouTube channel. But understandable where you can see the infection come on very quickly. And if that's the case, Hep sulf is one of the remedies you want to reach for.
Yeah, so then the ulcers, the vesicles turn into an ulcer quite quickly. But and the pain can also be like stitching pain, so like needle-like pains.
Yeah, and I always think of stabbing. Is stabbing and stitching kind of the same? When somebody says it's a stabbing pain, they feel like they're being stabbed, or stitching is, like you had said, more like needles, fine
Yeah,
pricks
like a
of
fish
pain.
bone. It's like prickling. Imagine that somebody has a cut and you are stitching that person, so
Okay,
it's with a needle. While stabbing is more like a cut. It's like a
okay,
knife, a
or a jab.
razor-like pain,
Yeah,
you know.
okay,
Yeah.
fantastic,
So
great.
Ebba Sulfur has this teaching, the tonsils, they will say, oh, it's like I have a needle or a fish bone going
Stuck
through.
in my throat,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you, Dr. Alex, for all of that
Well, thank you,
information.
Rebecca.
Very, very much appreciated. It's always wonderful to kind of dial in on these remedies and find out all the little attributes and how they show up for us. Because, people that don't have kids may have never dealt with impetigo, but they may have had boils or abscesses, or some of the attributes of some of the other remedies. And we are Homeopathy United. The two of us work together. We have these two groups, the skin group, and we also have a farm animal and homeopathy group, which some of you belong to. And this year, we've dedicated time every Thursday at around 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. UK time. We're going to jump on every other week and share some remedies with you about a specific condition or issue. And we will tailor things toward the skin group. And if you have a condition or an issue that comes up and you need some support, please reach out. We do offer a free 15-minute meet and greet if you want to talk to us a little bit more about what homeopathy can do for a condition that you might be struggling with. And there are a variety of different opportunities to connect with us with appointments and that sort of thing. We look forward to seeing everybody, and we appreciate all of our members, and thank you for all your contributions, and please keep writing in and sharing your stories with us. And thank you again, Dr. Alex, for all of your wisdom and input. Much appreciated.
Now, the wisdom is not only mine, and thank you because all the technical, it's all yours. It's not
Yes,
mine at
slight
all.
technical difficulty today. We think we figured it out, so we shouldn't have that problem, and we'll start on time next time. But we look forward to seeing you all in a couple of weeks. Thanks so much. Be well.
Bye-bye.